Welcome to the Audacity to Age, where becoming never gets old. I'm Kristie Crenshaw, and this is a place for women who believe life's most meaningful chapters aren't behind them, they're being written right now. Together, we'll explore the stories, lessons learned, reinventions, and unexpected joys that come with life after 50. Together, we'll challenge old thinking, embrace new possibilities, and discover what it means to age with purpose, curiosity, originality, and verve. So grab your coffee, lace up your walking shoes, or settle into your favorite chair. This is the Audacity to Age. This episode is a great conversation that I had with Linda Ruffenach. We discuss her love of bourbon and business, activities and travel adventure as a single female, finding your person, barreling through the C-suite, and knowing when to walk away, surviving breast cancer, creating experiences in life, and understanding your currencies of choice, her upcoming book. Lean in and listen up. Linda Ruffenach, if someone has never heard of you, has no idea who you are, tell us, who is Linda Ruffenach?
Well, I am a business owner. I am a entrepreneur in residence. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a bourbon lover. So I spent 19 years of my career with one company, helping it grow from a startup to an international enterprise. Went from being an application developer to the CEO and everything in between over those 19 years. And today I spend a lot of my time working with fellow business owners, helping them figure out how they scale and grow their business and plan for transitions if that's where they want to head.
You are a very, very busy lady. You do a lot.
I have a little bit going on, yes.
A little bit. So I like to look at, as I'm building this post 50 life, which we're going to get to that decade in a minute, but I like to look at some past experiences and see what was my learning there and what am I bringing with me into the next phase. So if it's okay with you, let's just jet on back to your 20s and fill me in on when you look at your 20s, what was the overarching lesson learned or the aha or the epiphany that you're like, yes, that's the thing that I'm going to carry with me? Is there a story there and will you share that?
Absolutely. So, probably the first thing was that when I was in my 20s, I had gotten an offer for a job before I had finished college to move to Dallas. And I made the decision to do that in about a week. And my parents' heads were spinning. And so, but we packed up and went to Dallas. When I got there, it was a great, fantastic job. I was in a new city, getting to know people, and that whole experience of kind of being new and fresh and really figuring out who I am was
Mhm.
a big part that I took away from that. But the about 6 months into it, the company I went to work for closed down. And
Mm,
so here I am in Dallas, all my stuff here, had no job, had, apartment, all kinds of expenses. And of course, my family, who didn't want me to go in the first place, were like, well, here, we'll come get you and you come back home. But I was
mhm,
bound and determined to do it myself. I had kind of discovered me a little bit more away from being in my hometown. And so I ended up working part time, doing temporary work for about 4 months before I actually got a full time job working for PepsiCo.
mhm.
And that just showed me the tenacity by which I can get through this. I can make things
Yeah.
happen. And it kind of took away some of my inhibitions and kind of reinforced the confidence that I've carried forward in my career.
That shows tremendous resilience. Anytime our expectations aren't met, that's usually when we deal with a lot of pain and suffering. I'm curious, some of your part-time jobs, were any of those in like the retail area or customer service oriented?
Technically, yes and no. Actually, one of the ones that I had is I was working for J.C. Penney and was working in their studio for their catalogs. If
Okay.
some of us over 50 understand when J.C. Penney used to have a catalog.
Yes.
And so it was working in there and helping them organize shoots and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But most of my work in Dallas was I'm actually trained to be a developer and I was doing reporting for financial departments,
Mhm.
which kind of lended in where my career ended up heading. But that's what I was doing a lot of that time was doing financial analysis and creating reports and that type of thing.
So you were just operating at a whole different level than I was at a 20-year-old because I was working in retail and in customer service and waiting tables.
Well, and here's the thing that where I got there was that I had gone to Western Kentucky and I had a dang good time the first 3 years I was there.
Mhm.
And I came back for the summer and I ended up working temporary for a real estate company and just doing back office kinds of things. And then when the summer was up and time for me to go back, I didn't want to go back because I was enjoying working in the business world. But I got to credit one of the bosses that I had at that time. He said, I'll hire you on one condition. You have to continue to go to college. I'm not going to live with the guilt of taking you out of college and you not completing your degree. And so from there, I continued to work for the next 5 years and go to college. And finally graduated from college at University of Texas at Dallas after I had moved there.
I lived in Houston for 6 years. What was your vibe or your take on Texas in general? Did you enjoy it?
Well, in my 20s, it was a great place to live and I had a really good time. I had a couple of really good friendships that really I value even to this day. It was a great place to be in my 20s. But the one thing that I learned about living in Dallas, it was all about the next best thing coming along.
Mhm.
And whether that was a job or a car or the next best place you live, or in some cases, the next best relationship. And I just knew, I mean, Louisville's not a small town, but
Mhm.
very different than Dallas. And I knew if I wanted to have a family and kids and stuff like that, I really wanted to move back here.
So, I mean, I know it's a big 10-year span, but looking at your 30s then, what was your defining moment there or your biggest aha takeaway? If I could go back and tell myself, remember this one thing to get through this easier, what would that be?
Well, my 20s and my early 30s were filled with a lot of activity and a lot of adventures. I was very fortunate in the things that I was able to do. Wasn't married at the time, had no strings attached. So, I took advantage of business trips. When I was there, I'd stay there for a few extra days. I ended up traveling on my own in my early 30s and going solo on a couple of big tours. And then my life really shifted when I met my husband at 34. And, I had kind of given up on the whole thing. I'm like, forget it. I'm gonna continue to live the life that I'm living and loving it all along the way. I met my husband, and then suddenly I realized, okay, having a relationship and having a partner
Mhm.
is actually kind of a good thing. And it was very rare because neither he nor I had really any long-term relationships. We'd had a few, like, maybe I think my longest may have been 6 months. That's how
Right.
much I didn't want to commit. But I found my person.
Mhm.
I found my person and it was fantastic. And that changed my whole perspective on everything.
Mhm.
I went into our relationship, one with no regrets because I'd had all my adventure, not all of them. I'm
Right.
still having adventures today, but I had gotten to do what I wanted to do for many years. And then when I met him, it really shifted my focus on, I was very heavily focused on my career. I was
Mhm.
focused on building up income and hitting those milestones you have. Then when I met him, it was sort of like, oh, wait a minute, there's more to life than work. And that really did shift a lot of things for me in the 30s.
I want to take a second and really take that in because so many women in their 20s, or at least when I was growing up, and maybe some still are now, were searching for their MRS degree and they wanted to get married right away. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. However, in your case, you were developing your own individual expression of Linda, and you were stretching and growing in ways professionally, intellectually, that when you met your person, it was obvious. Whereas I
Yeah.
think if you're underdeveloped or you're emotionally malnourished because you haven't really devoted some time to grow yourself, then if you meet a really great person, there can be a lot of stops and starts. It can be painful. And I say that from experience.
Yeah.
So I really admire that you did that. And I think it's a wonderful tale of encouragement for someone who might be not 22, thinking that their person is out there somewhere and why can't they find them?
Well, I attribute a lot of it to my mother. My mother was, if she lived in this day and age, she would have been a completely different person. My parents were married for 40 some years, very happy. He was her person, right?
Mhm.
But she told me early on, don't live your life for a man. You need to live your life for yourself. And because, looking back, she gave up a lot. I don't think she really regretted it, but she did wish she had fulfilled some of those dreams. In fact, when she turned 50, she went back to college
Hmm.
and she got her degree, her associate's degree in fine arts, and was really wanting to pursue her bachelor's degree. And then my dad retired and she put it all on hold.
Mm.
And part of that was her pushing me and saying, do not do that. Wasn't that she didn't love my dad and she wasn't
Oh,
happy with
sure.
her choices, but
Right.
she didn't have the choices that I had. And she made it okay. There was no pressure for me to find a relationship and push that way. It really was be who you are, and that right person will come along. Now, granted, I had a couple of toads along the way that were,
Certainly.
I'm glad. And there was one in particular, wow, dodge that bullet kind of thing. As I like to say, he was well worth the wait.
Yeah. I love that because that's not an or situation, it's an and situation. It's not develop yourself and have adventures and travel and grow or find a relationship. You can do both at the same time. And you've clearly done that and continue to do that because you are not slowing down by any stretch. So this brings us to our 40s. If you'd like to go ahead and dive on into that. Did it look a little different or did it look exactly as you thought it would? Take
It
us
was
through that
different.
decade.
It was different. And here I'll tell you why is that I was with the same company for 19 years. And if you would have told me I would have been with the same company for 19 years, I would have told you, you're crazy. There's no way.
Right.
But when I look back on those 19 years, it wasn't just one job. We went from a startup to a $100 million company. And along that way, I had so many different opportunities and challenges and experiences. I ran operations for a big chunk of the time. I was CFO for a period of time, and I eventually led my way into being the CEO. And there was a lot of that peaked during my 40s and those experiences. But probably the biggest ha moment was for me when my kids were 7 and 9, I believe, maybe a little bit older, and they started noticing me being gone. And I was having to, because the growth we were doing, I was having to travel internationally, flying to the Philippines, going to India, all those places. And those aren't short trips. I'd be gone for 8, 10 days. And my boys kept asking, where, Mom, are you coming home? Or, I started missing things. So when the opportunity came up, and, a lot of things that happened in between, I had the choice and I made the decision that it was time for me to leave. And it's a choice that I will never, ever regret. At the time, it was very hard because I'm like, I've been here for 19 years. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I'll digress just a little bit and tell you a little story because I think there's an important lesson in there, which is,
Please.
um, I was at that place in my career where I was running the place, but I also, that adage that it's lonely at the top couldn't have been more true for me. And I also had people that were supporters and I had people that were not supporters. And we work, and it was part of it. We were owned by a publicly traded company. So there was an accountability one layer up that we had to worry about. But I come home frustrated and, do that mad cry that some of us do when you're just furious. And there was just, I remember one evening coming home and my husband looking at me and he said, Linda, you're done. And I looked at him like, what do you mean you're done? I'm like, are you done with me? Like, are you leaving me or whatever that is? He goes, no, you're done. It's time for you to walk away. And I looked at him like, are you crazy? I'm the breadwinner. I'm the one that makes all the money. How the hell are we going to pay our bills? How are we going to do this other stuff? He said, this is not worth it to you, to me, and to our family. And I remember the advice that somebody gave me along the way, and this is the piece that I think is really important, that in
Mhm.
life you can choose to take passengers or hostages, and it's a lot more fun to travel with passengers. And at that moment in time, I knew my husband was going to be a passenger on my train with me. And it kind of gave me that freedom that I needed to make that choice. Not that I had to ask for permission, but there were two of us in here, and really there were four of us that I needed to consider.
Mhm.
And that was probably the biggest lesson I made in my 40s. And along with that, I should have done it 5 years earlier was the other part. So
Mm. So if there's a woman out there who is in a similar situation of contemplating juggling, family and career, can you offer some clarity on what questions she should be asking herself to arrive at the right answer for her?
first of all, this whole thing about life balance and career and life balance is just BS, right? There is no right or wrong way. So what I've done is and I've narrowed it down to six currencies in life that we trade all the time between, we only have so much time, we only have so much energy and so much focus that we have in our lives. And I've narrowed it down to six things, which is your wealth, health, achievement, relationships, freedom, and purpose. And these
Mhm.
things are things that we trade off with each other all the time. And when I was in my 20s, it definitely was all about wealth and achievement. Even in my 30s, and even after I got married and I was honest with myself, my relationships still were on that second level, not the top level,
Right.
because I was trying to work towards that security and those other things. And then as I hit my 40s, it started to shift and relationships became more important to me and living my purpose. And I guess my advice is think about what's important to you now and being just aware of you're making choices about what is important and you need to be aware of the trade-offs, because looking back, if I paid more attention to the trade-offs, I probably would have made a little bit different decisions. And when I finally in my late 40s made the decision to leave, it was because I started to see those trade-offs and the price that I was paying in other places in my life,
Mhm.
and that really got me changing the way that I live it. And today I make all my decisions based upon freedom and purpose.
Mm.
And it's a freedom to choose who I work with, when I work with them, how I work with them. And then purpose driven, which is how do I use the strengths, the knowledge, and the experience that I have to pay it forward and help others in their business.
And you do in so many beautiful ways.
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
you're absolutely right. Anytime you say yes to one thing, you are saying no to something else. It might be small, but you are saying no to something else. And so, running through that filter and your beautiful currency list, we can talk more about that towards the wrap. So that kind of wraps us into our 40s. Looking at our 50s now, we're both in that same 50 plus age bracket, and things look probably different than we thought they would. Doesn't mean they're bad. What does your audacious life look like in this 50 plus era for you?
It goes back to that freedom and purpose thing,
Mhm.
right? Which is, I'm at that place in my life where one, I've spent 50 years building a reputation and building up who I am and people knowing who I am and really honing in on my values and my value proposition. To where in my 50s, it's less about that as much as just kind of living the life that I want to live and make sure that I'm doing it in the right ways. And once again, going towards that freedom and purpose. And it took me a long time to figure out my purpose. And that's probably the biggest thing in my 50s was discovering truly what is my purpose and digging into that and also embracing that and just, realizing this is what God put me on this earth to do.
Mhm.
And I need to be living that every day and paying it forward and really understanding what my values are.
Mhm.
And so today I live it that way. Plus, the other thing is that once again, I found my person and we're back to making adventures. We're out having adventures again. I went through a bout with breast cancer that was just a very difficult period of time that reminded me that my health was really important and that I needed to focus on that. But I also had to focus on life and living my life with the people that are most important to me. And that's really where I've been trying to do. And probably more than anything, I'm trying to create experiences. I want to create more experiences for us so that there's more memories and more moments that we all have.
Yeah, I love that. Will you talk a little bit more about that? Because you and I had a conversation about this very thing. When you look at the coming year on how you want to create that, many of us throw a bunch of tasks that have to be done in certain times, or we hit, our ROIs for certain quarters that we have to meet these numbers and these goals. But I really love the take that you have on creating a year of experiences. Talk more about that.
So it's funny, there's a book out there called Die with Zero, and that kind of inspired me. And it was really about one of the things that the author in there talked about is around the ROI on experiences. And it
Mm.
talks about how a lot of us are all working so hard to get that retirement fund put together, and we start stocking money away and putting it away for rainy day. But how much are we missing out if we were to take some of that money, not all of it, take some of that money and invest in experiences? And the way I like to put it is like, think about that best trip that you had, that one that's most memorable. Just even by thinking about that, you all of a sudden got this warm feeling in your heart and your mind, and you probably got pictures that are flying through your head of those moments. And every time you do that with those memories and those experiences, you get additional ROI on it. And the
Right.
way that he positioned it is, you can create those experiences in your 60s or your 70s, but you only have so much time to experience the ROI. So why not create them? Of course, he was talking about the 30s and 40s. I'm like, damn, I'm already in my 50s. I'm very closely getting to 60s. Is, you know, are you creating those experiences so that you can get that ROI over a much longer term? And so this year, we've specifically set out that we are going to sacrifice some other things in order for us to live some experiences. And we've got plans that we've got trips with just my husband and I, with our kids. I've got a group of people that I'm going to do on a trip later in the fall. So it really is about it's less tangible things. I don't care. Like we were, Christmas gifts, oh, give me jewelry. Don't give me any of
Right.
that. I don't want any of that anymore. It doesn't
Can't take it
matter
with
to
you.
me. I can't take it with me. And even this past Christmas, that's what my husband and I decided to do is we were going to give each other experiences.
Mm.
And it was one of the best things that we've done because once again, it creates memories together, it creates moments for us and something that we can share and we can cherish and think about for a long time.
And what a beautiful example you're setting for your kids to for how to live fully and audaciously, and to really go out there and grab the experiences that you want to have instead of just reading about them in a book.
Well, and I hope they learn how to make money too, because my husband and I already told them, you don't count on an inheritance because we're spending every penny while we're here. Part of it is creating those experiences. And some of that may be for them as well. That's the other part it talks about is don't hold up an inheritance or investing in your kids if they've got life milestones or things that you can help them with at that point in time
Hmm.
and you feel okay about it, then do it because they're going to appreciate it more at that point in time than they are when they get this big bunch of money when
Right.
hopefully they're old, you're old, and they may have less time to enjoy it.
Well, if they have any of the Linda gene rolling around in them, they're probably going to be really good with numbers because I know how you geek out when you get in that zone, how much you love it.
Yeah, I get a little
So
geeky.
you do in the most adorable way. For those of us who don't get geeky in that way, and it's terrifying, that's why we need people like you in our life. For those who want to find you on social or for business or collaboration, how can they find you online?
So first thing, LinkedIn is probably the best way to connect with me, which it's Linda Ruffenach. And also my website for my business is execuity.com. It's execuity.com. And you can check out all the things that I got going on. And if you ever want to have a conversation, it's really simple. I have a website called consultlinda.com. It goes directly to my calendar, and you can set up a 45-minute call just to catch up, get to know each other, and I never turn down a conversation with anybody. And so I always get something out of it. So feel free to reach out and schedule a time.
Awesome. I'll make sure all of that's in the show notes. Do you have any singular ask of anyone? Is there anything that you want someone to go do? A call to action from Linda with Execuity. What would that be?
Take note of where your priorities are
Mhm.
and understand what those are and the trade offs that you have. And being mindful of those trade offs doesn't mean you change your priorities. And then, by the way, there's no right or wrong answer. Relationships still aren't at the top of my list, even though they should be. But I see freedom and purpose as my means for fulfilling my relationships.
Mm.
But it's, taking that time to figure out what really is important to you at this point in time, because it does change and it does evolve and living your life knowing that's where you want to invest your time, your focus, and your energy.
Nice. All right. I like to wrap up our conversation with the dream dinner scenario. You have a dream dinner, dead or alive, no relatives. Who are your six guests and what are you eating?
Well, my sixth guest would probably be some of my very best girlfriends and people that I have a lot of respect for. And just because I've got a lot of different women out there, I really don't want to name all six because I might leave
Fair. That's
somebody out and
fair.
hurt their feelings. I have some amazing women that are in my life. That's who would be sitting around the table with me. Talking about experiences, when I turned 55, we had a private chef that came into my home and actually did a six-course meal for all of us with wine pairings and everything. And that would be something that I will and want to repeat doing that again.
Love it. Linda, thank you so much for being here. Linda
Thank you.
Ruffenach, everyone. Find her, get to know her, follow her. I do want to give you an opportunity to talk about something coming down the pike. Do you want to give a little teaser on something you're working on, your big
Yeah.
project?
Yeah, so it's all related to what we talked about, which
Mhm.
is I have a book that I'm in the middle of wrapping up. It's called Currency of Choice, and it really is talking about those six currencies and what do they mean? How do they impact your life? Where are you bartering with them? How do you decide where to barter with them? And the whole thing behind it is that I believe you will make better decisions, make informed decisions when you really stop and take inventory of those six priorities and be aware of when and how they change so that you're getting the life that you want. All of the things that I do is all about knowledge and experience breeds confidence.
Mm.
And in this case, I really want you to have the knowledge and the experience of knowing yourself so that you got the confidence to ask for what you want, you know why you want it and how you want it, and no one else is going to tell you how to do it.
Mic drop right there. Thank you. Linda Ruffenach, have an awesome day. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is Kristie Crenshaw. Thanks for joining me at the Audacity to Age, where becoming never gets old. If you'd like more stories, insights, and encouragement for navigating life after 50 with purpose and possibility, subscribe to my Substack, The Audacity to Age on Substack. And if you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow, rate, review, and share it with someone you love. Until next time, keep choosing curiosity over complacency and possibility over limitation. How will you be intrepidly daring, marked by originality and verve, in life post-50? That's having the audacity to age. I'll see you soon.